The sitting room of the Park estate looked like something out of a magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows. White orchids on a marble side table. Afternoon sun coming in hard and clean across the floor. Everything in that room had been chosen deliberately. The furniture, the flowers, the light. Including the women. 3 of them sat arranged across the room like they hadn't arranged themselves at all. Minji in a structured ivory blazer, legs crossed, one hand resting on her knee. Yuna in pale silk, posture perfect, a small smile ready at the corner of her mouth. Rin nearest the window, pearl earrings catching the light. Back straight in the way that old money teaches you before you're old enough to understand why. Kong Minjae stood near the entrance. Suit pressed. Expression neutral. He had planned this the way he planned everything. Carefully, efficiently, with clear desired outcomes. He had not planned for what happened next. The double doors opened. Seon-ho walked in. He was 6 years old and small for it, wearing a white button-down that someone had clearly ironed for him. He stopped just inside the doorway and looked at the room the way he always looked at new situations, like he was taking inventory. The 3 women shifted. Minji tilted her head. Yuna patted the cushion beside her. Rin extended one hand. Palm up, the universal gesture adults use when they want children to come to them. Seon-ho looked at all 3 of them. He didn't move. His eyes tracked to the side of the room, near the doorway to the hall. Tiara was there. She had come in quietly, the way she always did, and was setting a silver tray on the side table, water glasses, a small dish of fruit, a folded linen cloth on the side. She wasn't watching the room. She was just doing what she came in to do. Seon-ho crossed the room. He walked past Minji, past Yuna, past Rin. He walked all the way to the side table, reached up, and took Tiara's hand. Tiara looked down at him, then slowly looked up at the room. Seon-ho looked at his father. Her, he said. I choose her. Nobody moved. Minji's smile stayed exactly where it was. Yuna looked at Kong Minjae. Rin looked at Tiara. Mrs. Kwon, standing near the kitchen door, pressed her lips together and looked at the floor. Kong Minjae looked at his son, then at Tiara. For 1 second, just one, he looked at her like he was actually seeing her. Then he walked across the room. Before we get started, here's a quick question. Are you watching by yourself, or do you have company? And what city or country are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Afro-Korean Confessions TV. Kong Minjae crouched down to Seon-ho's level. His voice was low and even. Come sit down. I am sitting down, Seon-ho said. He wasn't. He was standing next to Tiara, still holding her hand. Seon-ho. The boy looked at his father without flinching. That look, steady, unbothered, completely certain, was the most unsettling thing in the room. Tiara spoke first. I can step out. No. Seon-ho's grip tightened. Minji laughed. It was the kind of laugh that fills space without meaning anything. Children, she said warmly, to no one. Yuna smiled at Kong Minjae like they were sharing a private joke about someone else's kid. Rin watched Tiara. Kong Minjae straightened up. He looked at Tiara, a brief, unreadable look, and she got it immediately. She crouched down to Seon-ho. Hey, she said quietly. I have to finish setting up, okay? I'll be right outside. You'll leave. I'll be right outside that door. Seon-ho studied her face. He was 6 years old, and he was studying her face the way adults study contracts. He let go. Tiara stood, picked up the empty tray, and walked out without looking at anyone. The door closed behind her. The room breathed again. Kong Minjae guided Seon-ho to a chair near the window and said something low in Korean. Seon-ho sat. He picked up the small book he'd brought in with him and opened it, but he wasn't reading. The conversation resumed. Minji asked Kong Minjae about his recent trip to Singapore. Yuna complimented the orchids. Rin accepted a glass of water from Mrs. Kwon with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Everything looked normal. Then Seon-ho looked up from his book. She cried, he said. Everyone stopped. He wasn't looking at anyone in particular. He was looking at the chair Tiara had been standing next to. When I was sick last month. She thought I was sleeping. He turned a page in his book, not looking up. She sat on the floor next to my bed, and she was crying because she didn't want me to be alone. The room was completely still. Minji's smile was gone. Yuna looked at Kong Minjae. Rin set her water glass down on the table very carefully. Kong Minjae stood by the window. He didn't say anything. He was looking at his son, and his face had changed, not dramatically, not in a way the women across the room could read clearly, but something behind his eyes had shifted. Something had gotten in. Seon-ho went back to his book. Outside, through the tall windows, the garden was bright and still. And somewhere on the other side of that kitchen door, Tiara was doing her job, same as any other day, having no idea that a 6-year-old had just changed everything. The gathering moved like it was supposed to. Wine came out. Conversation picked up. Kong Min-jae sat across from the three women and performed the version of himself he'd been performing for 2 years, composed, attentive, in control. Minji talked about a case she'd just closed in Singapore. Yuna mentioned a new store opening in Gangnam. Haerin asked about Seonho's school. All of it landed smoothly, the way things do when everyone in the room is working. Seonho sat in his corner and watched. He had stopped pretending to read. Kong Min-jae caught it twice. His son watching the door. Tiara had walked through more than he was watching anything else in the room. The third time he looked, Seonho was watching him instead. Kong Min-jae looked away first. In the kitchen, Tiara moved between the counter and the stove without rushing. She washed the tray, dried it, put it away, pulled a pot from the cabinet. Mrs. Kwan came in and stood next to the refrigerator. That boy has never done that before, Mrs. Kwan said. Not once. Tiara ran water into the pot. He was just being Seonho. Tiara, I know. She set the pot on the burner. I know what it looked like. Mrs. Kwan watched her. Tiara kept moving. Are you all right? I'm fine. She opened a cabinet and pulled down 2 spice jars. Set them on the counter. Her hands were steady. Can you check if we have more of the barley tea? I think we're almost out. Mrs. Kwan didn't move right away. She looked at Tiara for a moment, really looked at her, then went to check the pantry. Tiara turned the burner on and stared at the flame until it settled. The gathering broke for 20 minutes just after 4. Kong Min-jae directed the women to different parts of the house. Haerin toward the garden terrace, Yuna toward the upstairs sitting room. Minji pointed to the east hallway toward the library. He went to his study. Minji walked the east hallway slowly, stopped near the end, pulled out her phone, and answered a call she'd been waiting on. Her voice dropped. The motion gets filed Monday. Don't wait for me to call, just move. A pause. I don't need more time. I need it clean. Another pause. Yes, I'll be out of the house by 6. She hung up, looked at the painting at the end of the hall for a moment, then walked back toward the sitting room like she'd just been stretching her legs. Upstairs, Yuna moved through the corridor without hurrying. The house was impressive, she'd give it that. Wide hallways, real art on the walls, none of the decorating by committee feeling you got in most new money estates. She passed a sitting room, a linen closet, a set of double doors at the end of the hall that were closed. Her phone came out. She turned and photographed the length of the corridor, the artwork, the layout, both sides. Then she stopped at a framed portrait near the staircase. A family photo. Kong Min-jae younger, maybe 5 years ago, arm around a woman. She was laughing at something off camera. Seonho was an infant in her arms. Yuna stared at the woman in the photo. Her jaw shifted. She put her phone away and went back downstairs. Haerin found the senior housekeeper near the garden entrance, an older woman named Park Sun-hee, who had worked at the estate for 11 years. Haerin was warm, easy, the kind of warm that feels real until you notice what it's asking for. How long has the other girl worked here? The one inside. About 3 years. She lives on the property? She has a room in the east wing, yes. And she's close with the boy. It wasn't a question. Park's son, he answered it anyway. Seonho likes her. Haerin looked out at the garden. And Mr. Kong, does he know her well? She works for him. Haerin smiled at the garden. Of course. She looked back at Park Sunny. The orchids are beautiful, by the way. Someone has a real eye. She walked back inside. Park's son, he watched her go. When the gathering reconvened, the room felt slightly different. The edges a little sharper, like something that had been pleasant was now working harder to stay that way. Tiara came in to refresh the water glasses. She moved around the room efficiently, not looking at anyone, not performing invisibility either, just present, just doing what needed doing. Kong Min-jae was mid-sentence when she came to his side of the table. He stopped. Not long. Half a beat. Then he picked up again. But Minji saw it. Yuna saw it. Haerin, who saw everything, took a slow sip of her water and set the glass back down. Tiara finished and walked out. Kong Min-jae did not watch her go, but Seonho did. And when he looked back at his father, something in his expression settled, the way it does when a child has been waiting for confirmation of something they already knew. He opened his book again. This time, he was actually reading. The gathering ended just before 6. Pleasantries at the door. Promises of dinner soon. Haerin touched Kong Min-jae's arm when she said goodbye, brief, deliberate, the kind of touch that announces itself. He thanked them all for coming. Watched the last car pull out of the gate. Stood in the entrance hall for a moment, alone. The estate settled around him, the particular quiet of a large house after people have left. Somewhere down the hall, he could hear Sean-ho's voice, talking to someone. He followed the sound. Sean-ho was in the kitchen doorway, telling Tiara something about a dinosaur. She was listening from the counter, arms crossed, head tilted, completely focused on what he was saying. Neither of them noticed Kang Min-jae in the hallway. He didn't announce himself. He just stood there for a moment, watching his son talk. Then he went to his study and closed the door. The study was dark except for the desk lamp. Kang Min-jae sat with his laptop open and a glass of whiskey beside it that he hadn't touched. The estate was quiet. Seon-ho was in bed. The staff had cleared out for the night except for the night security and Tiara, whose light he could see from his window, a thin line under her door in the east wing. He opened the staff records. He'd never looked at them. That was Mr. O's domain: hiring, contracts, performance reviews. Kang Min-jae ran a company. He didn't manage housekeeping files. He found her file and opened it. 3 years of reviews. All clean. Mrs. Kwan's notes were consistent, reliable, thorough, exceptional with Seon-ho. One note from 8 months ago suggested restructuring the East Wing morning schedule to reduce overlap with the boys' tutoring hours. Implemented. Works well. He kept scrolling. Education. He slowed down. Bachelor's degree, University of Ghana. Master's in Child Development Psychology, Columbia University. Second Master's in Organizational Behavior, NYU. He read that twice. Then the employment history before the estate. Soro Foundation, Lagos. Executive Director. 2019 to 2022. He clicked the attached document. It was a nonprofit registration, educational programming, rural school outreach, teacher training. The numbers in the report were real. 4,300 children across 11 districts. 3 years of operation. He scrolled to the bottom. Reason for dissolution: primary funding withdrawn. Park Industries, Strategic Partnerships Division. October 2022. He sat back. The whiskey was still untouched. He opened a second window and pulled up the Park Industries archive from 2022. Strategic Partnerships. October. He found the withdrawal order in 4 minutes. It wasn't hidden. It just wasn't something anyone had ever thought to look for. Authorized by Chairman Park Dae-sung. The reason listed was one line: reallocation of philanthropic resources per Q4 strategy review. Kang Min-jae closed the laptop. He sat in the dark for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and called Mr. O. It rang twice. Sir. The Soro Foundation. 2022. Who made that call? A pause. Longer than it should have been. That decision came from the chairman's office, sir. Did you know? Ah, yes. At the time, I understood it to be a routine reallocation. Did you know she was here? Another pause. I processed her application, sir. I didn't connect it until about 6 months after she started. I didn't think it was relevant to. We'll talk tomorrow. Kang Min-jae hung up. He stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the east wing. The light under her door was still on. Tiara was sitting on the floor of her room with her back against the bed and her knees pulled up, reading. It was a real book, worn spine, pencil marks in the margins. She'd had it since grad school. She wasn't absorbing any of it. She'd been reading the same paragraph for 20 minutes. She closed the book and set it beside her. Looked at the wall across from her, bare except for a small calendar and a photograph she'd taped up in her first week. Her mother, her sister, a Sunday afternoon somewhere in Accra that felt like a different life. She thought about Seon-ho's face in that sitting room. I choose her. She pressed her fingers against her eyes. She wasn't supposed to matter here. That wasn't the plan. The plan had been to get close enough to understand what happened to the foundation, confirm what she suspected, and leave. Clean. No attachment, no complications. Seon-ho had made that plan very difficult. A knock at her door. She stood, straightened her shirt, opened it. Kang Min-jae was standing in the hallway in the same clothes from the gathering, jacket gone, collar open. He looked like a man who had been sitting alone in a dark room for an hour. Can I come in? She stepped back. He came in and stood in the middle of her small room, and she could see him register how little was in it. A bed, a desk, the books stacked along the wall, the photograph taped above the calendar. He looked at the photograph for a moment. Then he looked at her. You ran the Soro Foundation. Yes. You've known who I was since before you applied. Yes. He was quiet, not angry. She'd prepared for anger, had rehearsed what she'd say to it. This was something else. He looked like a man who had just found out the floor he'd been standing on had a different structure than he thought. Why didn't you say anything? She took a breath. Because I didn't come here to make you feel guilty. I came to understand what happened. Whether it was deliberate, whether you knew, I needed to see it for myself. And it took me about 6 months to figure out you didn't know. He absorbed that. 6 months of her watching him, reading him, living 20 meters from his son. After that, she said, I stayed because of Ho. He looked at the floor. I'm sorry, he said, for what the company did. I know that doesn't. It doesn't fix anything, she said. Not hard. Just true. No. But I hear it. She looked at him. I hear you. The room was very quiet. He looked up, and for a moment neither of them moved. Not because nothing was happening, but because too much was and neither of them had any cover left for it. He looked away first. Good night, Tiara. Good night, Mr. Kong. He walked out. She closed the door, stood with her back against it. She picked her book up off the floor, sat back down, and this time she didn't try to read. If you're still watching, drop a comment and let us know where you're from. And if this story is pulling you in, hit that like button and subscribe to Afro-Korean Confessions TV. We post every week. Ho was already awake when Kang Min-jae came to check on him. He was lying on his back staring at the ceiling with both arms flat at his sides like a small, serious soldier. The nightlight made the room amber. His dinosaur book was open on the pillow next to him. Kang Min-jae sat on the edge of the bed. Neither of them said anything for a moment. Are you going to make her leave? Ho said. Why would I do that? Because she embarrassed you. In front of the ladies. She didn't embarrass me. Ho turned his head and looked at his father directly. You made a face. Kang Min-jae said nothing. You make that face when something happens that you didn't plan. Ho looked back at the ceiling. I know that face. Kang Min-jae sat with that for a moment. His 6-year-old had just described him more accurately than most people who'd known him for decades. She's not leaving, he said. Ho nodded slowly. Like that was the correct answer, and he'd been waiting to confirm it. Appa. When she was crying. Next to my bed. He paused. She wasn't crying because she felt sorry for me. She was crying because she actually cared. Kang Min-jae looked at his son. There's a difference, Ho said. I know. I don't think the ladies today knew that difference. Kang Min-jae reached over and closed the dinosaur book, set it on the nightstand, pulled the blanket up. Sleep. Ho closed his eyes. Kang Min-jae stood at the door. Ho, how did you know she thought you were sleeping? Because she whispered. People only whisper when they think no one can hear them. A pause. That's when they're the most real. Kang Min-jae turned off the light. He stood in the dark hallway with that sitting in his chest. Morning came in fast and bright. Tiara was in the kitchen at 6:15, same as every day. Coffee on, fruit cut, the small table near the window set for one. Ho always ate before his father on school mornings. She moved through the routine without thinking about it. That was the problem with routines. They made it too easy to stay. Mrs. Kwan came in at 6:30 and stopped in the doorway. Mr. O called last night, she said. Late. Tiara didn't look up from the stove. About what? He didn't say, but he called the gate too. Asked who was still on property. Tiara turned the burner down. He was probably just doing a security check. Tiara. Mrs. Kwan's voice was flat. Mr. O has never called the gate at 11 at night for a security check in the 11 years I've worked here. Tiara set the spoon down on the rest. Looked at the window above the sink, the garden, the morning light, the east wing visible at the far edge. I'll be fine, she said. Mrs. Kwan looked at her the way older women look at younger ones who are being stubborn about something dangerous. Then she went to start her own morning. Kang Min-jae was at his desk by 7. He had 3 messages from Mr. O, sent between 10:30 and midnight. He read them without responding. The third one said, Hae-rin's family attorney contacted me this morning. They've requested a conversation about household staffing ahead of the shareholder meeting. I think we should discuss. He put the phone face down on the desk. He pulled up his email and found the legal flag his general counsel had forwarded at 6 a.m. A preliminary motion filed by Min-jae's firm, framed as a routine commercial inquiry, but structured in a way that would give her firm access to 3 years of Park Industries' internal communications if it moved forward. He read it once, then again. Then he called his general counsel and talked for 4 minutes. When he hung up, the motion was being countered before the morning session opened. He called his head of investor relations next. The infrastructure renewal contract. The Hae-rin family's stake. What's the current position? They're in for about 12% of the civil works package, sir. It renews in. Review it. Full audit. I want it on my desk by Thursday. He hung up, picked up the phone again, dialed Mr. O. Sir, Min-jae's motion is being countered this morning. Her firm will not receive another referral from this company. Call legal and make that formal. He paused. Hayren's family attorney does not get a conversation about my household. Not now. Not ever. If they call again, they go straight to my lawyer. Sir, with the shareholder meeting coming up, I think it's worth considering how this looks. What I do in my house is not a shareholder issue. Silence. Was there something else? Kong Min-jae said. No, sir. Good. He hung up and sat back. Looked at the window. He found his father's number and held the phone in his hand for a moment. Then he dialed. It rang 3 times. Min-jae, I found the Soro Foundation withdrawal. Quiet on the other end. I know what division it came from and I know when it happened. His voice was level. No heat in it. We'll talk in person. But I'm telling you now, whatever the reason was, it ends there. No more interference in how I run this house. You don't know the full picture. Thursday. My office. He hung up. He set the phone on the desk. Outside his window, down in the garden, Seon-ho had appeared on the path below in his school uniform, dragging a stick along the hedge. Tiara was 2 steps behind him, school bag in one hand, his water bottle in the other, saying something that made him stop dragging the stick and take the bag from her. Kong Min-jae watched them. Seon-ho looked up at the window. He raised one hand. Not a wave, just a flat acknowledgement, the way serious people greet each other. Kong Min-jae raised his hand back. Tiara looked up. Their eyes met through the glass for 1 second. She looked back down at Seon-ho. Kong Min-jae didn't move from the window for a long time after the car took them down the drive. Tiara came back from the school run at 8:40. She came through the side entrance like always, hung the car keys on the hook by the door, and stopped. Mr. O was standing in the kitchen. He was a compact man in his 50s, always in a dark suit, always with the expression of someone who had already calculated 3 moves ahead. He was holding a manila envelope. Tiara looked at him, looked at the envelope. Mr. O, good morning. He set the envelope on the counter between them. I need you to look at that. She didn't touch it. What is it? Your contract termination. Effective end of the week. He kept his voice clean, professional. Full severance, 1 month additional, a reference letter from the household. Everything in order. This isn't punitive. Tiara looked at the envelope. Did Mr. Kong authorize this? A short pause. This falls within household administration. That's not what I asked. Mr. O clasped his hands in front of him. Miss Tiara, I've worked for this family for 14 years. I know what's good for this household and what creates complications. You've been good with the boy, genuinely. But what happened yesterday in that sitting room created a situation that is bigger than you understand. I understand it fine. There's a shareholder meeting in 3 weeks. There are people watching this family right now who will use anything they can. Then they'll have to find something else to use. She looked at him directly. Because I'm not leaving based on a document you put on a counter while Mr. Kong was in his office. Mr. O looked at her for a long moment. I'd encourage you to think carefully, he said. I have been thinking carefully, she said. For 3 years. He picked the envelope back up, held it for a moment, then set it back down and walked out. Tiara stood in the kitchen alone. She looked at the envelope. Then she picked it up and walked down the hall to Kong Min-jae's study. She knocked twice. Come in. She opened the door and held the envelope out. He looked at it, then at her. He stood up from behind the desk. Mr. O left this on the kitchen counter this morning. Her voice was steady. I want to know if this came from you. He took the envelope, opened it. Read the first page. His expression didn't change dramatically, just a tightening around the jaw, a stillness that meant something was happening underneath. He set it face down on the desk. No, he said. It didn't. She nodded once. Turned to leave. Tiara. She stopped. Sit down. She turned back. Sat in the chair by the window, not the formal chair across the desk, the one beside the window where the morning light came in. He came around the desk and sat in the chair across from it. No desk between them. He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. I handled Min-ji and Hayren this morning, he said. Min-ji's legal motion is being countered. Hayren's family won't be calling here again. He paused. I talked to my father. She looked at him. He authorized the foundation withdrawal. I didn't know. I should have, he stopped. Started again. I should have known what my company was doing. That's on me. Tiara was quiet. I'm not telling you this so you'll feel better about staying, he said. I'm telling you because you deserve to know it was handled. She looked at her hands. Then back at him. For 1,000 children, she said quietly. 3 years of work. Teachers we trained. Schools we built from nothing. She wasn't performing sadness. She was just stating facts. We were 2 months away from opening a permanent learning center in Tamale. 40 classrooms. We had the land. Kong Min-jae didn't look away. I know. Do you? Not aggressive. Genuine. No, he said. Not the way you know it. He held her gaze. But I want to. The room was very quiet. Outside the window, the garden was bright and still. A bird moved through the hedge. The morning felt like it was waiting for something. The foundation, he said. Is it completely gone? The legal structure is dissolved. The relationships, the teachers, the community leads, they're still there. They didn't go anywhere. They just don't have resources. What would it take to restart it? Tiara looked at him carefully. Why? Because my company broke it, and I have the resources to fix it. That's not, she stopped. Looked at him. You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to. She studied his face the way Sean-ho had studied hers in the sitting room, reading for the thing underneath the words. Whatever she found there settled something in her. It would take about 18 months to rebuild the operational structure properly, she said. The funding is the easier part. The relationships take time. Then we start with the funding, and you lead the rebuild. I'm your housekeeper. You have 2 graduate degrees, and you ran a foundation that served 4,000 kids. He sat back. You're not my housekeeper. You've just been doing that job. Something moved across her face. Not quite a smile, but related to one. You'd have to find someone else for the kitchen, she said. Mrs. Kwan has been running that kitchen for 11 years. She didn't need you. Now she did smile. Small. Real. He watched it happen and didn't pretend he wasn't watching. Tiara. His voice was quieter now. I know what this is. I know it's complicated and I know the timing is. He stopped. I'm not asking you for anything you're not ready to give. But I need you to know that what I'm feeling isn't about yesterday. It's been building longer than yesterday. She looked at him. I know, she said. I've been trying not to know that, but I know. We're at the halfway point and this story is just getting started. If you're feeling this, hit that like button, drop a comment, and make sure you're subscribed to Afro-Korean Confessions TV. Don't miss what's coming next. 3 days passed. The estate settled into something new. Not dramatic, not announced, just different in the way that things are different when something unspoken finally gets said out loud. Tiara moved through her days with less armor on. She still did her job. She was still professional, still precise. But she stopped engineering distance. She stopped leaving rooms 2 minutes before she needed to. Kang Min-jae noticed. He didn't comment on it. He just stopped pretending he didn't notice. Small things accumulated. He started taking his morning coffee in the kitchen instead of his study. He told himself it was efficiency. The kitchen was closer to the garage. The garage was where his car was. Mornings were busy. It had nothing to do with the fact that Tiara was always in the kitchen at 7:15 and the conversation was always easy and Seon-ho would wander in half-dressed eating a piece of fruit, and the 3 of them would exist in the same space, without effort. It had everything to do with that. Tiara started leaving a second cup out. She didn't say anything about it. It was just there. He noticed the first morning and said nothing. The second morning he picked it up and stood beside her at the counter while she checked Seon-ho's school bag. And for about 4 minutes they were just 2 people drinking coffee, while a child complained about having to wear his good shoes. It was the most normal 4 minutes Kang Min-jae had experienced in 2 years. On the third morning, Seon-ho looked at the 2 coffee cups on the counter, looked at his father, and went back to his toast with the expression of someone whose plan was proceeding on schedule. He thinks he arranged this, Tiara said quietly, not looking up from the bag. He did arrange this, Kang Min-jae said. Don't tell him that. He already knows. Tiara looked up. Kang Min-jae was watching her with something open in his face. No performance, no management, just a man looking at a woman he was tired of pretending not to look at. She held it for a moment. Then Seon-ho said, I need my blue pencil. And the moment broke and they both moved and the kitchen was loud again. But something had shifted. Again. Incrementally. The way things shift when they're building towards something real. Chairman Park arrived on a Thursday. No warning call. No scheduled meeting. His car pulled through the gate at 11 a.m. and Kang Min-jae was in a video call with Singapore when Mrs. Kwan knocked and told him. He ended the call. His father came into the study like he owned it, which, technically, 15 years ago he had. Chairman Park Dae-sung was 71, sharp-eyed, and had the posture of a man who had never once in his life been uncertain about whether he belonged in a room. He sat down across from his son without being invited to. You called me, the chairman said. So talk. I told you everything on the phone. You told me you found the foundation withdrawal. You told me to stay out of your house. The chairman looked at him steadily. I came to tell you in person that you don't have the full picture. Then give it to me. The chairman leaned back. The Sorrow Foundation was flagged by our intelligence team in 2022. They had concerns about the regional political affiliations of two of the foundation's secondary donors. We pulled funding as a precaution. You pulled funding from 4,000 children because of the secondary donors. We pulled funding from an organization we couldn't fully vet. That's called due diligence. Kang Min-jae looked at his father. The foundation's executive director was a 29-year-old woman with 2 graduate degrees who built that organization from nothing. She had nothing to do with whoever flagged those donors. We didn't know who the executive director was. You didn't look. The chairman was quiet. Her name is Tiara, Kang Min-jae said. She has been living in this house for 3 years. She is the reason your grandson is not a closed-off, grief-hollowed child right now. And your company ended her life's work without reading past the first page of the file. The chairman's jaw tightened. You're letting this get personal. It is personal. It was always personal. You just didn't know her name yet. Kang Min-jae stood up. I'm rebuilding the foundation under Park Industries' philanthropic division. Full funding, 3-year commitment. Tiara leads it. That decision is already made. The chairman stood too. The room got smaller. The board will have questions. Let them ask. Min-jae. The chairman's voice shifted, lower, harder. That woman came into this house with an agenda. You don't think that matters. She came here to understand what happened. She stayed because my son needed someone. He looked at his father directly. She had every reason to weaponize what she knew and she never once did. That's the only thing that matters. The chairman looked at his son for a long moment. Something moved across his face, not agreement, but recognition. The look of a man recalibrating. He picked up his coat. I'll see myself out. He stopped at the door. She must be something, he said. Not cruel. Almost quiet. She is, Kang Min-jae said. The chairman left. That evening, Kang Min-jae found Tiara in the garden. She was sitting on the low stone bench at the far end of the path, shoes off, feet in the grass, face turned up toward the last of the evening light. She heard him coming and didn't move. He sat beside her. Not close. Not performing distance either. Just beside her. They sat without talking for a while. The garden was gold and quiet. Somewhere inside the house, Sean-ho was being loud about something. They could hear him through the open window, narrating what sounded like an elaborate dinosaur battle. Your father came, she said. He did. How did it go? He left without winning. That's the closest he gets to losing. She looked at the grass. He's not completely wrong, you know. I did come here with an agenda. I know. That doesn't bother you. He looked at her. You stayed 3 years past the agenda. That's the part I'm focused on. She was quiet. Tiara. He turned toward her on the bench. I'm not rushing anything. I know where we are, and I know how we got here. But I'm done pretending I don't want to be sitting exactly where I'm sitting right now. She looked at him. Really looked at him. The same way she'd looked at him in her room that first night, reading past the surface. Kang Min-jae, she said slowly. Like she was deciding something. Yeah. If this goes wrong. It won't. You don't know that. No, he said. But I know I haven't wanted to sit still next to anyone in 2 years. And right now I don't want to be anywhere else. She looked back at the garden. Then she leaned. Barely, just slightly, until her shoulder was against his. He didn't move. He just let it be there. They sat like that while the light died, and the garden went dark and Seon-ho's dinosaur battle reached what sounded like a dramatic conclusion inside. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. It was Mrs. Kwon who found it. She came to Tiara's room at 9:15, knocked once, and came in without waiting. She was holding a printed document, 2 pages, stapled. Tiara sat up on her bed. Where did you get that? It was in the document tray in Mr. O's office. He left it there this afternoon. Mrs. Kwon held it out. I think you need to read it. Tiara took it. It was a report, formatted like an intelligence brief. No letterhead, no authorship, just data. Dates, locations, names. Her name. Her mother's name. Her sister's address in Accra. The foundation's remaining overseas accounts. Accounts she hadn't told anyone about. Accounts that held the residual funds she'd been protecting for 3 years against the day she could rebuild. And at the bottom of the second page, a single handwritten note in the margin. She's not who she says she is. Check the Tamale land title. H. Tiara stared at the H. Hey Rin. Mrs. Kwon watched her read it. When Tiara looked up, Mrs. Kwon's expression said everything. This isn't over, it just changed shape. Tiara stood up. She walked to her desk, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out a sealed manila envelope she had been carrying with her for 3 years, moving it from Lagos to New York to this house, waiting for the moment it became necessary. The Tamale land title was in it. So was everything else. Every internal communication from Park Industries' Strategic Partnerships Division. Every email. Every authorization. Every name. Including one name that appeared on documents from 2022 and again, same signature, different letterhead, on the incorporation papers for Hayrin's family's newest investment vehicle. The same investment vehicle that had quietly acquired land adjacent to the Tamale site 6 months after the foundation collapsed. They hadn't just pulled the funding. They had waited for the foundation to fall, and then they had taken the land. Tiara held the envelope. Mrs. Kwan stood in the doorway. "What are you going to do?" Mrs. Kwan said. Tiara looked at the envelope, then at the door. "I'm going to finish what I came here to do." If this story hit you the way we think it did, like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to Afro-Korean Confessions TV. We tell stories nobody else is telling. Don't miss the next one.